Bird, 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 bird. Get him. Yeah! Ron Babe was right. Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. Sorry, I am a little late. I've been trying to get back on a good Sunday routine, but I had a good reason, and I'll tell you about it at the end of this. Well, I can tell you about it right now, but I'll expound on it later. I was out in Pennsylvania judging dogs. That's right, back in the saddle. But I was with the Versatile Hunting Dog Federation. Oh, my God, it did feel good to be back. It feels almost as good as turning on my Onyx. It feels like it's hunting season. Well, back now I'm judging, and it feels like it's pre-hunting season. But Onyx Maps, that's my title sponsor. Should be your title sponsor. You can get so much done with them. It doesn't matter what you want to do. Navigate, find, mark pin, share points, kayak, fish, speedboat. I think they have slalom ski courses on this thing now. They've got so many layers, it's like an onion. Maybe that's what the ON, see? Maybe that's what they saw ahead of time. It really wasn't Onyx, it was Onion X. Who knows? Hard to say. I doubt it. But thank you, Onyx, for everything you do for this podcast, the Upland Institute, and everything else in my outdoor world. And thank you, Pike Gear, for putting clothes on my back, which I wore. I wore this weekend, only part of the weekend. Only part of the weekend. It was a little drizzly. I had a little Tongass pullover. It was just right. It wasn't too. It was just right. It's like for a drizzly day. You know what I mean? Like a sprinkly day. I didn't need the raincoat, but I still need my Pike Gear to get ready for hunting season and to wear it. I basically wear it all year long. Be honest with you. Some people see me. They're like, "Those same pants you had on last month?" I'm like, yeah. They don't smell. They don't get dirty. They're made out of, space material. Anyway, Boss shot shells are not made out of space material, but they are made with copper-plated bismuth. They are the only copper-plated bismuth shell in the land. Universe, country, North, South America, the entire globe, but however you want to parse it out, you cannot get a better, Boss makes the shells. You got to make the shots. And if you do that, you're going to be making something with Walton seasoning. Was that a segue? That was a segue. I know. It's like a dad joke segue. Anyway, Walton's has everything but the meats. And want to remind you, they just sent me the new promo codes. So this is for all listeners. Now, Patreon patrons will get an email about this. What'd you say? What's a Patreon patron? Well, there are people who donate a little money to the show, and they get all these discounts on a lot of my products. Okay, so we cleared that up. But all listeners can go to Walton's, and any order over $30, use the promo code HDOG. HDOG. I like that one. It's a different code. HDOG10. Got it? HDOG10. And that's 10% off all orders over $30. And patrons, look on your emails tomorrow because you'll be getting the Patreon discount, which is more. That's why people join Patreon. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out. And I did bring my gunner kennel all the way without a dog, but it got a lot of eyes. And when I was out in Pennsylvania, I saw 4 people with gunner kennels. And you know what? They all had smiles on their faces, and they all had happy, safe dogs. They all had the confidence to go down the road with the dog in the world's safest kennel. They did. And you know what? I should have brought the food crate with me. Dang it. Because you can make like a temporary ice bucket out. You can make a lot of things out of it. But that would have been handy. That would have been like the way to go to Ron's truck and get a beer would be like, oh, no, go to my gunner kennel food crate. Yeah, that would have been. I should have done that. Garmin, of course, Garmin. I talked to 3 people about the one. Yeah, one of them actually had to see how the new watch worked. I saw 3 people. All of them wanted to know about the watch because they saw my Instagram about the Instinct Solar 2. I'm telling you what, the battery life, the solar is better, but that little button up at the top under control, you hit it twice, and you have a headlamp coming out of the side of your wrist. You can't beat Garmin for anything. But I'll tell you what, if you want something for Father's Day and it's only, it's like next weekend, right? Right? So, or this coming weekend, see if you can put it on your list. Get the Garmin Instinct 2 Solar. You're going to love it, and you're going to love that flashlight on the side of it. Comes in handy in motel rooms, going in the back of your truck. I don't keep a headlamp. I mean, they're usually in my glove compartment, or somewhere this time of year. But I'll tell you what, you're roaming around at dark, you just click that thing, boom, there's a beam of light coming out of there that would navigate the cosmos, or maybe. And if you're going to put this on your Father's Day list, okay, I would go to W Hunting Supply. That's DOUBLE Hunting Supply. W, the letter U, Hunting Supply. And see if you can get one in time to give it to your favorite father, whether it's your father or your wife's father or your brother's father or your neighbor's father, whoever you want to give it to on Father's Day. That's where I would go to get any Garmin product. That's right. Purina Pro Plan, I will tell you, not much new. I haven't heard from Purina. I mean, the dogs are fine. Food's fine. It's probably because it's just good food, and I don't have to really think about it. I have dialed food back. I don't change my food this time of year. I hear people talk about that. Never been a good recommendation to anybody I ever heard. I don't change my food. I just dial it back a little bit. And all the dogs are, I'd say they're summer shape. Yeah. I mean, Itty's Itty's always just a little broad in the middle. But not fat. She's just thick. She's a thick girl. And Zara looks great after her litter. Tagus looks great. V looks great. And little Zuka, they all do great on Purina Pro Plan. And I do great on Wilderness Athlete, Canine Athlete. I needed every bit of hydrate and recover and energy and focus. It's been 2 years since I walked a versatile hunting dog test for a weekend. And we did some walking. And if I didn't have my Wilderness Athlete, now this is how my dogs would feel if I didn't give them the the hydrate and recover. It hit me like if I didn't have that with me, I just wouldn't recovered, and I've recovered. I had another drink of it. I make a big old ice tumbler out of it, from the HDP store. Those tumblers you can buy that say I'm feeling spry. Yeah, I made a big Wilderness Athlete drink for me on the way home, and I did not make any. You know what I'm trying to say. Come on. It's late. It was a long drive. It was a 10-hour drive today. So just, cut me a little slack. All right? Don't forget the Upland Institute. You've got plenty of time before season, and depending, you don't have to get a pointing dog in shape, obedience-wise for dove season, because that's the 1st of September. But by your regular hunting season, if you get the Upland Institute Foundations and Fundamentals, you can have, depending on the age of your dog, of course, you'll be ready for your first season. Go to the Upland Institute, see what it's all about, train your own dog. You will never be sorry that you trained your own dog, honestly. I got an episode coming up with Justin in a couple weeks. You're going to love that one. He's got a new idea how he wants to do a podcast. And I'm like, Chip, come on over to the kennel. We'll do it. We'll talk whatever you want to talk about. And, that's it. That's it. Of course, I said the HDP store, and I said I would tell you a little bit about Pennsylvania. It was just the Versatile Hunting Dog Federation test. I know some of you heard this. Maybe not all of you listened to it, but they work on a 10-point system with a 10-point plus system. So if you saw a dog that just went above and beyond what you thought was excellent, you could, if all 3 judges agree and they all saw what you saw, you can give the dog an 11. And you know how many times back in the old days of judging, I would say that I said, boy, if we could give them more than 4 points, I'd give them 5, But that system's a little restrictive. This one is not. If you want a really good evaluation of your dogs, especially of your puppy litters, if you're a breeder, because when you think about it, I know we've talked about it before, but when a dog gets a 0 to 10 range of points compared to a 0 to 4, like if a 4 is the top score, and if you numerically dice that out or parse that out to 76% of the work, so it's it did more than 75% of the work that I was looking for. So you give it a 4. That means I would have graduated with straight A's. And everybody that knows me personally, they know I didn't graduate with straight A's, but I had a lot of 76s on my test cards. So the Federation has a 0 to 10 with a plus available, and I'll tell you what, I think we gave 2 11s out, one to a Vizsla and one to a Griffon, I believe, or was it Mike's wire here? I can't remember. Anyway, it's really cool. It really makes you feel like you're giving an accurate picture, and there's no prizes. You know why? There's just results. That's part of their saying. Versatile Hunting Dog Federation. No prizes, just results, just scores. Okay, come in there, you get your score. It's run very similar, but it's just a lot more. It's a lot more real. That's all I can tell you. And the scores are a lot more real. There's no vagueness to the scores. Anyway, this week's episode, I had Brian Lynn from Sportsmen's Alliance. They sent me the magazine, or I get the magazine, and it was just a great magazine last month, and it made me think I haven't talked to these folks in years. And the Sportsmen's Alliance is an organization that's like a shame on you for not being a member of. But we already know that like very few people, when it comes to the dog world in entirety, even support Rough Grouse Society or Pheasants Forever. Most people just go, I don't need it. I don't need a magazine. I'm not going to a banquet. I'll tell you what you do need. You need the Sportsmen's Alliance on your side, because all dog people, including just dog pet owners, this world ain't getting any better that we live in, and the people that are trying to do legislation that they're trying to get the hunting dogs, but they're going to get everybody's dogs eventually, okay? And I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but I'm saying these laws that silly ass, I don't know, legislatures, whatever you call them, congressmen, senators, they come up, they don't even know what they're signing, and it just sounds good, right? Well, we go through in some deep detail on how many things the Sportsmen's Alliance has done to save your bacon and your dog's bacon in some cases. You would not believe some of the court cases that he's going to talk about. Not court cases, some of the legislation that they were able to stomp out, and some of it that gets by. It's a shame, and shame on you if you're not a member of the Sportsmen's Alliance. Seriously. Hey, everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. I am on phone in a Zoom call with Brian Lynn. He is the VP of Communications and Marketing of the Sportsmen's Alliance. And I'll bet right now a couple of you went and turned your head like, who? I mean, we all know the conservation organizations. We all know, the everybody heard of TRCP. Everybody's heard of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, Pheasants Forever, Rough Grouse Society, right? So, Brian, right off the bat, why hasn't every sportsman heard of the Sportsmen's Alliance?
Well, hopefully that's something we're going to be changing, but we've always been a small group. We were formed in the 70s. 1977 is when we were first formed, and we were kind of, we were never set up to be a big membership organization. We were originally set up as kind of a PR / political campaign organization that, protected hunting. We started in Ohio. Amarillo, we came in the 70s and tried to stop trapping in Ohio, and they saw it as kind of a toehold state. If they could stop it in Ohio, they could expand out from there.
Yeah.
Some businessmen, wildlife professionals, avid sportsmen got together and raised a bunch of money, put out a campaign, to counteract this ballot initiative, and they actually won. And then they were like, okay, let's all go back to our normal jobs and back to work. Well, folks in California started calling, hey, we got stuff out here. Other states started calling, hey, they're making moves out here too. And so our guys got on planes, went out there and said, here's what you got to do. Here's the steps you take. Within a year or so, they're like, oh, these people are making moves across the country, and that's when the animal rights movement really took off politically, was in the 70s. And so they, created the group, and it was called the Wildlife Legislative Fund of America at the time. And basically just went to states where they were needed, won, and then went back home. And
It's
it's
kind of like the fire jumpers that go out and put out the fires in the, in the homes, and then they all go back home, and then they get called out again and go put out a fire.
Yeah, and so that's what we did for a couple decades. And even though we were a group, that's kind of still how we operated. And then we expanded from the ballot box, of course, to all state legislatures, but still kind of kept that model. We walk in and very effective in lobbying or getting something killed, and then just kind of go about our business, not looking for kudos or anything. And I came on about 9 years ago and was like, okay, we got to start drumming, beating our own drum a little bit, and making some noise so people know who we are. And so for the last decade, we've really been working on doing that and letting people know who we are. We're connected to pretty much everybody in the industry. I mean, we work with all the nonprofits and different companies, and so but still a lot of people don't know who we are. We're small. I think the entire organization, there's about 17 of us.
Wow.
That's including the gal who answers the phone at the front desk and lets people in the door and signs for UPS packages.
That's not a huge company. It's not to cover the entire United States.
Yeah.
To protect sportsmen.
Yeah, very efficient, very no BS. We just get right to it.
How do you now? Before we hit record, I'd mentioned to you I feel we're very fortunate in Michigan to have Michigan United Conservation Clubs on our side, right? They're sitting in Lansing, and they get wind of all the bills that come through, whether it's a leash law or a dog in the truck law, and those laws are written really vague. So if it's on a ballot, Jane and John Doe see, oh yeah, I don't want a dog left in a car. But how do you, I know how they do it, in Lansing with our group. How do you guys keep a thumb and get all these, do you just have like a stock market ticker tape of all the shit that's coming down every day from every state?
Pretty much. I mean, you can go to our website right now, sportsmensalliance.org, and go to the Legislative Action Center.
Yeah.
And we have a heat map that shows
the
different states and how, kind of hot they are with stuff. And this year was, eventually all 50 out of 50 states were in session to begin with. It was about 48, but it all happens at the same time. And then you can see how we break it down between bills that are targeting wildlife commissions, sporting dogs, trapping, hunting, fishing, and I think there's one more breakdown in there. But you can click each of those and you can see how many different bills are sporting dogs. I think there's, I think there was 300 or something like that if I were to look.
And some of them are, like we said, they sound innocent, right? I mean,
tethering bills. So you're sitting there and, tethering, it's aimed at, the pit bull on a chain someplace who spends its life, in the rain in a muddy puddle. Think of your ASPCA commercial.
Right. Right.
And that everybody wants to avoid and wants to stop, except for hunting dog guys, hounds and bird dogs especially. You're using drop chains and chain gangs, putting them out on the chain, and whether you're training and teaching them to give the neck, whether you're out hunting, field trialing, you got a string of hounds or bird dogs. That's the most effective, efficient way to feed them, air them, and get them back
Yeah.
in the move. And it's a training technique. That would be, by the letter of the law, tethering. And we're just using little drop chains off the big lead. A lot of these bills are the lead has to be 3 times the body length of the dog. Well, can you imagine that chaos?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I can see how many dogs would get tangled up and get into, yeah, that,
Yeah.
outlawing something like that would be like, because it's funny you said, this really, the anti stuff started in the 70s, and I'm old enough to remember because that's when I got my first hunting license in 72. And, we didn't get wind of anything like that in 72. It was, free, everybody did what they want. Nobody judged you.
Yeah.
But talking about like a tethering law now would be like telling my mom she couldn't use a playpen when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like, right. Oh, you have to make the house completely safe, and little Ronnie has to have free run
Uh-huh.
because you can't use a playpen. It's the safest thing for a toddler, right? He's got a 4-foot square crate. That's what it was. It was a jailbird. I didn't know any better, and my mom said I never got into anything.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you stay safe, and so it's bills like that we'll get, and sometimes they're intentionally written vaguely like that. Other times the politician just doesn't know. It seems like a good idea, and this goes for conservatives or liberals, especially the conservatives. Actually, we're seeing a lot in the suburbs. They need that kind of heartfelt, hey, we're good people, and we love
we
things.
love dogs in the backyard. Don't think we don't. Right.
So they'll push this stuff without realizing it. And so sometimes it's just a matter of educating, like, hey, this is actually bad for us and our group. And oh, okay, write an exemption. During the hunting and trialing, this doesn't apply to these things. Some other states are like, nope, you don't get to do that, and they don't care. And so that's when we have to unleash the hounds and tell people to flood them with calls and start working on the pressure point in the political process.
That's got to. Would you say this maybe not be a fair question, Brian, but are you successful more than you're not successful, and be the easiest way to put it?
Yeah. I mean, it feels like we're under attack and we're losing left and right. But when you see the sheer number of bills out there, it's amazing they don't actually pass more of this stuff.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, we've been monitoring since January 1, well over 1,000 bills nationwide. And so yeah, you're going to lose some out of 1,000. You're going to lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or a dozen, whatever. But considering what they're throwing against the wall, more often than not, we win. Except the downside is that they only have to win once. We have to win every single time. They just win once, and they're moving the ball down the field with first downs. They don't need a touchdown. They don't have to end a hunting. Just pick you apart here and there and take their shots when they can each session, and just move a little bit. Death by 1,000 cuts, basically.
Yeah, I mean, so once any of these things, does, and I know I am no politician. I don't follow politics really well, but I do know what danger, if you're a ballot initiative state, can be. Like you get everybody voting on something that they know nothing about. But you could also compare that to a presidential election sometimes. But on things that affect everyday citizens in their neighborhood, it's crazy. It almost doesn't seem, I hate to say it, but it doesn't seem fair that Jane and John Doe should be able to vote on some of these things. It's almost like it should be science-based, but in some states. So is that harder because of a ballot initiative state, or is it just hard all the time?
Well, you have the process of the legislative stuff, which is where most of it takes place. Ballot initiatives are expensive, right? They usually cost $2 to $5 million to run for both sides.
Wow.
About buying airtime, timing your ads, backing them up, getting the literature out there, polling, figuring things out. But especially with wildlife issues, ballot initiatives come down to popular vote, and where the voter base is for those are the big cities.
Right.
You got the I-5 corridor on the West Coast, and you got Chicago in the Midwest, Illinois. and
Yeah.
New York City, in New York, and those big urban voting blocks control it. And so all you have to do is convince them of something, put a you know endangered animal up, or a wolf with pups or something like that,
Yeah.
grizzly with cubs, and say this is bad, and play some sad music, and those city people are going to be like, yeah, that's bad, and
Right.
they'll accordingly, but they have no consequence or repercussion for that vote. You're not going to get wolves coming into, Detroit. It's the folks in the upper UP
Right. Right.
deer hunting or farming or ranching who are going to suffer the consequences that are they're on the interface of all this.
Yeah.
The folks who are voting, they have no skin in the game. It doesn't matter to them, which is
Yeah.
bad. To
Which
say,
is,
so it's especially when you're in a state that is just a simple majority, you know,
yeah.
1% or 50.5%, wins
Right.
it. It's the other states, Utah for one requires a super majority, 60%. That at least raises the threshold a little bit more. Other
Right.
states qualify, you have to have a certain number of signatures from every county, or from different areas. So that kind of balances the field, but a lot of states are just collect as many signatures as you can, and it's a simple majority vote.
And they could go to one urban center and get all those signatures.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, Oregon last year, they were trying to collect signatures, and they didn't make it, but they've already reintroduced it for 2024. And that would have, and it sounds crazy, right? This would stop any killing of animals for any reason except for self-defense. This includes slaughter for food. It includes transporting animals, hunting, fishing, out, anything and everything. This was like your radical dream, utopia.
they didn't even target anything. They just targeted killing.
Everything gone. Yeah, nothing. You can't kill an animal except in self-defense. And doing any breeding, like, insemination for cattle or dogs,
Yeah.
uh, that would be considered a sex crime.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so you sit there and you go, this is ridiculous. Not a chance in hell it'll pass. But now stop and think about it. Oregon, half of the state's population lives in Portland.
Right.
Portland is like an urban mecca for homelessness, the counterculture, drug use, everything.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I've been there. They're crazy. Like, it doesn't take a very you don't have to use very much imagination to go, oh, they could collect 225,000 votes
Yeah.
or signatures in this state, in just Portland, and
Yeah.
that entire state. Not a stretch of the imagination at all.
Wow. That I mean, not to say it's an injustice to say that's scary, but those people that could vote on something like that wouldn't even realize the impact.
No.
All they would hear is kill animal. They wouldn't read the bill. They wouldn't understand we're talking about livestock. We're talking about veterinary medicine. We're talking about they probably wouldn't even be able to go to the shelter and get their next dog. Probably, I'm speculating, but I'll bet that would somehow be in there. They would shoot themselves in their own foot and wonder what happened.
Well, yeah, and that's actually, kind of that statement right there is exactly where everything is at, right now with wildlife management. They are actively working to break the North American model, and they're saying,
Yeah.
oh, we have to increase biodiversity. We have to do this. We have to, climate change is doing it. And they're trying to paint the North American model as antiquated and out of touch, out of date, ineffective, when it's responsible for all the wildlife we have right now. I mean,
Right.
wild deer, elk, turkey, they're all about extirpated by market hunting and unrestrained, unfunded hunting, And so we created this North American model, which is a self-sustaining, funded model that has increased habitat and brought species back.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, nope, we need to break it, which in the long run is going to decimate wildlife.
Right.
Lose the value of wildlife. And I mean, wolves don't care. Like they're going to eat deer that are there, and then they're going to move on to find more deer, And so that's what they're doing right now in the big picture. And Washington State is kind of the epicenter for that, is breaking the model and putting predators first and letting them replace hunters. And
wow.
That's the scary part, is because
are they going to do gun safety training for the wolves and the bears and the mountains?
They just have a free for all. And I mean, we've got black bears, we got some grizzly bears, we got wolves, we got coyotes, and we got a bunch of mountain lions on the landscape.
Right.
Number on the ungulates, and they will continue to do so.
Right. Yeah, that. I think people should. I mean, if this was a 15-minute podcast, that should be enough for people to say, "I didn't realize it was that crazy."
Yeah.
Because especially if you live in, let's say, North Dakota, you're probably not really. I'm sure there's something happening in North Dakota, but it probably isn't enough that it's going to affect Joe Hunter in North Dakota. But just like fashion, look, I don't even like Crocs on people, right? And that started in a hospital on the East and the West Coast and infiltrated all my hunting buddies somehow. So I don't want people in North Dakota and South Dakota to think they're insulated from this. This could, if that worked, it would spread just like any trend spreads. Yeah.
Oh, we call it the Californication.
Yeah.
Rid of the California ideas, and it's true. It's moved up from California to Oregon and Washington, and then it hits over on the East Coast in the North, or New York, New Jersey, and those states, and then it kind of works its way in exactly like you just said. And those ideas continue to spread, and they use a victory in one of those states to leverage the next state, the next state. And it's going on right now in the West Coast especially, but also the East Coast, with commission level stuff was where they've shifted in the last couple of years, is attacking at the commission level while still hitting the legislature and introducing ballot initiatives. These guys are well funded. They, between the top, I think 5 to 7 animal rights groups, they have something like $1 billion. $1 billion is what their operating budgets are between the top 7.
That is truly a scary number.
Oh yeah. And in today's world, we hear these numbers and we're like, whatever, $1 million, $1 billion, $1 trillion, whatever. It doesn't hit us anymore. But when you're talking ballot initiatives and it costs $2 to $5 million to run one,
they could do a lot of ballot initiatives with $1 billion.
Yeah, I mean, they could if they wanted to. They could run multiple states at the same time, and we would be absolutely screwed. Like, we don't have that much money in the hunting world.
Right. I mean, I think we do. I think we don't have. Well, maybe we don't in true dollars if we're an accountant sat down. But I know where we're lacking is in the advocacy side.
Yeah.
We don't. There's one guy I listened to and talked to, and he said we don't need more hunters. We need more advocates. Like, we need more involvement, because you really don't need that many people. A squeaky wheel can get oiled, and I don't think we're squeaky enough. I think we're very complacent most of the time, unless it bites us in our own butt, and all of a sudden, we're like, I didn't see that coming. But I want to take that to a question. So I was talking about ballot initiatives. So when you guys fight something and let's say win, are you taking care of it before it ever gets to the voters? Is that the best way when you guys get in there and straighten out people's understanding of a bill before it ever gets there?
Yeah. So like as a bill starts to go, the sooner you can kill it, the easier it is to kill it. Once the media gets a hold of it, once, the other side gets a hold of it and starts running with it, now you're basically in a pissing contest.
Yeah.
8 ball there. You know? But to what your point is, that when we put out an alert and say, hey, contact these guys, if 10 people, 10 would just pick up the phone and call, you're going to make a big impact. That's literally all it takes. 10, 12 guys to call in and be like, hey, this is BS. We don't like this. Here's why.
Right.
Well, if I got somebody picking up the phone, there's another 100 that feel the same way.
Yep.
And, emails are great. It's a good way to make noise, kind of flood them. At the same time, they can just go sort by subject, delete.
Yeah.
And if you're not in state, even though we travel to different states and hunt in different states, and it's good to get that point out there, like, hey, I come to your state and spend money and buy licenses and do this and that. A lot of times a politician doesn't care. All he cares about is his constituents.
Right.
So, sometimes you have to weigh, like, do we want a bunch out of state people weighing in? Is that going to drown out those 10 people who are actually matter? Or, what do you want? But picking up the phone and actually calling, you'd be amazed. It does not take much for them to go, oh, I better listen to this.
Yeah, I've been talked into that a couple times, but and this is self-admitting, like when I started hunting, I thought, oh, it's just brown grass and trees. I didn't think about pollinators and insects, right? The older you get, you start thinking about, you get a little more in depth. But I think with the internet, the generation coming behind me and behind you should, like, it almost like they should be more it's like it should be natural to be a better advocate. And when backcountry hunters and anglers came on the scene, I think they did a really great push on putting those phone numbers out there and those actions. They literally make it easy for you, right? I mean, you even if it is just the email, I've gotten at least the email back from, our state senator that said, thank you for your email. At least maybe it went in a deleted file, but they have to address every one of those. And as much time as we all look at Instagram and screw around and bullshit, I mean, what if every hunter committed to make one phone call, right? One phone call out of a year.
Yeah.
That would be what, 5 million phone calls.
Yeah. Be huge.
It would be huge. And it's like, how do we beat this into people's heads? I mean, because it ain't going to help once it's gone,
Yeah, and that's here in Washington, for example, we lost hound hunting and the use of bait for bears in 1996. It's not. In fact, we just lost our spring bear season now. So, it's not coming back once this stuff is gone, especially a ballot initiative. At least with legislative bills, you can go in and amend or repeal or whatever and change it through the legislature when things align better. With a ballot, which is just a straight vote of the people, there's no way to repeal that except by another ballot initiative.
Which means we would have to put that together and we would have to spend the $5 million to put the ballot initiative.
He has. And we would have to, and what's our message? We want to kill more? We want to kill more bears and mountain lions? That's not going to,
Hey, we're really unhappy about last year's ballot initiative. We want to keep, there's not a good way for us to do it except nip it in the bud, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. So when it comes to legislative stuff, the sooner you can stop it. And we work a lot behind the scenes trying to educate these guys, being like, hey, here's our issue with this. And they're like, oh, didn't realize that. I'll either kill it or we already know it's going to die in committee. Like, okay, these guys introduced it. Let's watch it in committee. We know this committee is good, or the chairman of this committee isn't going to let this come up.
Yeah.
He's not so it's a lot of looking through each state's process, what committee it's in, who's chairing it, what the makeup of the committee is, and like, okay, we know it's going to die. But then if it passes, boom, we send the alert out and say, contact them. And, we have the similar thing. Pretty much all the advocacy orgs have the same thing where here's a one-click email you can send, or here's the phone numbers. It's right there on our website in that Legislative Action Center. Got the heat map, got the contact your representatives or senators with all of their social media, so you can tag them, emails, phone numbers, as well as we'll have that pre-made email that you can just click and send
Right.
all your information in there.
I've got your, like I said in the beginning, the last magazine you just sent out, the spring issue, when you mentioned hound hunting. So California, Colorado, Massachusetts, Oregon, and Washington literally have no more big game hound hunting.
Yeah.
And that is, that should literally scare the heck out of the rest of the. Now you'd say, well, there's still what, 45 states? Well, that's not a good answer, you know? So it's almost like the hound hunters are they, I don't want to say more involved with you. Are they aware of it in the other 45 states as much, or is this just going to keep, like, they're kind of they've always been considered the low hanging fruit because, it's a rougher sport. And if somebody does see a video of it, they feel sorry for the animal up a tree, and, they don't feel sorry for, the cat killing the bird at the bird feeder. They could care less about that. Right.
Yeah.
But are like hound hunters, they gotta be nervous.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, they're on the front lines, hound hunting and trappers and bait.
Trappers too. Yeah.
Those groups are right on the front lines. Every year you're seeing something to take bait hunting away, to take hounding away, and to take trappers away. They're all the low hanging fruit, and they're in the front of lines. And they realize that they're big supporters. We have a lot of different groups that support us. There's even some of the bird dog groups. There's the Brittany Club that works with us a lot. Because when you get down to it, what's going on with big game hound hunting for bears and mountain lions is really no different than upland bird hunting.
Right.
You're using a dog to track and find that game, and you're shooting it.
Right.
And many, birds just walking around blindly and get a good shot on it. So just, glancing for bears. Yes, you can do it. Yes, you can shoot them, but you're not sexing them. You're not aging them. You're not checking, it's harder to check if they have cubs with them. Just like it's harder to get that shot off on a grouse in thick cover if you're just trying to walk them up.
Yeah, I'd be afraid of the next bill that said, okay, some dummies in Lansing would put a bill up that said you can only shoot female grouse or male grouse because we only shoot male pheasants. They would not care that you cannot identify a grouse in flight, right? But somebody in Bloomington, Illinois, or in Detroit, Michigan would be like, oh yeah, I think that's a better idea, Yeah. And when there's 5 states that have no hound hunting and there's 45 states that do, that, I'm repeating myself, that's not a good answer. So in a state like Michigan, where we're lucky, heavy hunting state, even though we have Detroit and Lansing and a few other cities, they probably know they couldn't get over the no spring bear or the no fall bear, but that's where they come in with the not leaving your dog in a truck law. Yep. Right? And if that becomes the law, well, they effectively stop bear hunting with hounds without going and saying we're going to stop hound hunting. They're like, well, we just don't want people to leave a dog in a truck. So yeah, they're coming at us from every little idea. And almost, and I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but you're probably going to tell me there's a true case in point. There's probably somebody that doesn't want us to use, Garmin or Sport Dog or any electronic collars on our dogs, right? Is there any of that going on?
Yeah, that was a big issue in California. We actually got that so you could still use it. Fought that battle 6-7 years ago, and they're definitely trying to take that away. And they phrase it and put it out there as if the bear has the collar on. Like, we just put up the Garmin and we can walk right to the bear. No, it's for the damn dogs. Like, we can find the dogs faster. We can get to them faster. We can collect them. I was just in Idaho last week. One of the hounds got lost. It didn't come back. We searched until midnight for her. Up with her. She went over the mountains, lost signal. We got up early the next morning, went out, we found her. Doing that with, without anything. You're not going to find that dog in the Rocky Mountains. I mean,
So those people would be okay with getting rid of electronic equipment for hunting, but they wouldn't worry about the welfare of the dog anymore, which is where they think they're saying it's something that's in the welfare of the dog, but like, yeah, but we know we're going to lose some dogs. That's like saying we don't need seatbelts.
well, everything they do is a circular argument.
Yeah.
That, then they would say, now you're losing dogs. And they would use that as the guilt trip to say, we need to stop this behavior. You do it with, you know, rifle hunting. They say, oh, you're using scopes and high-powered rifles. The animal doesn't know you're there. You're shooting them from a mile away. This isn't fair. This isn't ethical. This isn't da-da-da-da-da. But then you turn and you go bow hunting. They go, that's primitive. It causes death. It causes slow death. You know, it's a lot of wounding. So it doesn't matter. There is no happy medium for them. They don't care. They don't want to stop just long range or rifle hunting or just bow hunting. They don't want to stop just hounding. They want to stop all of it.
Right.
Period. Like, end of discussion right there. They don't care about the method. They say that. Oh, we just want to stop this trophy hunting, whatever that is.
Right.
Trophy hunt. We don't want to. We're not against hunting. We just want to stop it. In this instance, we just want to stop killing wolves because they're a apex predator, and you know, the whole trophic cascade and yada yada yada. No, they're trying to replace hunters with apex predators, which results in a drop of ungulates and other prey species, which then the state fish and game has no choice except to cut tags to hunters because we hunt the surplus, the biological surplus.
Right.
So they cut tags. Once we're cut out, there goes the funding and the model is broken.
Yeah. This is one of our saddest podcasts ever, Brian. But I do want to go back to that. So forgive me because I didn't retain it all. You said in California they did try to pass like a no electronics for hunting, and that would have included training and tracking collars.
Yes.
So,
they wanted the use of GPS collars, and they painted it as if it was on the prey animal, not the dog.
But if they'd have done that same so a citizen with their dog, it would probably be right down to a bark collar. I mean, if they wrote the bill vague enough,
I'll tell you,
a bark collar would come in.
We had that here in Washington State about 4 or 5 years ago.
Right, me.
Like, I sat in the committee meetings arguing with people, you know, and they were saying they were trying to define pain and suffering in the statute. What does pain and suffering mean? So they defined it as anything a human would find painful, mentally or physically, an animal will find painful. And it said from mild discomfort to excruciating pain.
Wow.
So if you want to apply that, and I use the bark collar, I use the invisible fence.
Yeah.
Drive home the point, because we tried telling them, like, my e-collar, I'm teaching that dog. I can stop that dog in a heartbeat. I can track the dog. I can tone it. I can give it an electric shock if it needs to. You want to talk about discomfort? My lab jumps into icy cold water. I'm not going to do that. That's going to hurt. I'm not going to last on. That's what the dog was bred for and made for.
Right.
He enjoys it. But if you're going to apply that statute, that means that dog feels the same pain that I do jumping into the water. You can take it and say training causes mild psychological discomfort for all of us. Sit and remember sitting.
School. It was school for me. That was discomforting for me.
Exactly. You know, so any learning, you know, training learning involves discomfort, you know, psychological or mental discomfort.
Well, we should probably get away with, they should probably close down CrossFit gyms too then, because that's painful. That's painful stuff. So
yeah, it's it just when you think they can't get any crazier, they do.
Wow. You know? That's more than scary. What I'm not ready to wrap this up, but I think I'd like to make the point a couple times. Besides joining Sportsmen's Alliance, which I've encouraged my listeners before, and I think I did once. You guys were on Meat Eater one time. I think I did a little thing on an intro, like listen to that podcast. It was really good. Besides joining, which I know you got to beat people into it sometimes. What else can people do? Because or is just joining enough? You know.
Well, yeah, it's never enough.
Right.
Joining is great. I mean, that helps us everything. You can go to our website for free. You can sign up for our alert system. So when we put out an alert in your state, you'll get the email and you'll get a weekly wrap up each week of the important stuff that was moving nationwide. So you can kind of see the trends and keep an eye on things completely free. And we don't spam it. It's not like we're like, like I don't want to do any more work than I have to. So
right.
Nothing to go out. I'm good with that. I'm gonna go train the dog and hunt.
Right. If a person's one of them, and I've met these people, oh, I'm not joining. I don't need another magazine. Well, then that is a good option.
Yeah.
Sign up for the emails alert. Make one phone call. That is not a heavy lifting thing I'm asking.
No.
One phone. Now, here's a question that I guess I think I know the answer to, but I want to be, crystal clear about it. Or for people like me, who a lot of hunters are like, I'm getting confused. So if you get an email alert about something happening in Oregon, are there things that everybody in the country could call in, or do you have to be an Oregon resident, or does it depend on the bill itself? Is there a easy way to explain that?
Yeah. So this is where things get a little sticky. Is the legislatures, they care about the constituents, the folks who live there, the folks who vote them in and out of office.
Right.
But as hunters, we travel. So if you travel to Oregon, you travel to Michigan, you kind of have a say in it. You can call or email and make that point. Be like, hey, I oppose this because I travel to Michigan and go grouse hunting. I get, a week's worth of motel rooms and eat at diners and buy my licenses and stuff. I won't be able to do that if this passes. That kind of makes the point.
Yeah.
And so that's a legitimate thing. A lot of times, avalanching them does work, just doesn't matter. Everybody weigh in on it and think of it. But sometimes that'll drown the voice out. So we kind of pick and choose where we're allowing out-of-state folks to weigh in, or we'll allow a certain number to send in emails, then it cuts off and just state residents can, because those are the important voices that the constituents are going to listen. If it's 10-1 out of state, they're not going through there looking at all of them. And I've heard from politicians and from commission guys that they're not looking and counting everything that comes in. They go, we have a whole lot of people that feel this way.
Yeah.
A lot of people that feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you just want the constituents to get it.
But that's all clear on the website. It would.
Yeah. If and when, though, if in doubt, call.
Make the phone call.
It doesn't hurt to have too much.
Yeah, because again, I thought of it like state to state. Like obviously we can't vote in that state. We don't pay tax, but that makes sense. If something came up in North Dakota about bird hunting, well, I'd be screaming from the rooftop. But you know what? If I got time to scream, I'm going to raise it to twice a year. Okay, can we get people to call twice? Yeah, I would call up somebody in Oregon and say, hey, I'm planning a trip to Oregon to come hunting. What are you doing? At least they would hear it,
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it takes. Involvement. We all scream on social media about things. We spend all this time typing out responses and stuff when we could be, instead of typing on our phone, typing these responses out, just push the damn button and call and say it to the politician who answers the phone.
Yeah. And I'll tell people, the governor of the state is not going to answer the phone. So don't think you have to address the person's hello, Mr. or Mrs. Governor. It's just going to be one of their aide helpers. And they, by law, I would say, they are going to be polite enough to you. You're not going to feel like, oh, I'm never calling there again. They will they will take it as seriously as a 911 operator takes a call in. They are going to say, yes, sir. No, they're not going to treat you with disrespect. I think that would really not be cool, you know?
No, they'll listen and they'll say, "Yeah, I might," and it could be just pissing in the wind, right? Like you're
Right.
not changing their stance or their vote, but
Right.
you're keeping
Yeah.
them busy. They're going, "Oh my God!" Like we've had politicians call, in multiple times, just this session, make it stop, just stop doing this. That's when we say, "Oh, step on their neck a little bit more."
Good.
This will make it stop. Just amend it.
Yeah.
Put in an exemption for hunting, whatever it is. And there's different ways you can do that. We don't necessarily have to kill a bill, a tethering bill or something. We can say, make an exemption for sporting dog breeds or for the act of training, trialing, and hunting.
Right.
Done.
And so that would be, as long as you know you can stop it with that extra verbiage in there, that's in the win column.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The alternative is a complete loss.
Right. Yeah.
Then get the exemption written in there.
Yeah. Is there, I mean, I know we mentioned hound hunting. If the antis could have it their way, what would be the easiest animal for them to, because you think of like how big whitetail deer hunting is in this country, right? I mean, it's the biggest. Would they go after elk, deer, duck hunters, upland? What would they? We already know they go after the trappers and the the houndsmen, but
Yeah.
like not secretly, but like who's the next one on the forefront? What's like the next apple that they could grab from the tree? They've already grabbed trapping and they've already grabbed hounds. Who do you think, or who would you speculate that they could go after next with some comfort?
So what they're doing is they're going after the deer hunter and the elk hunter, but they're doing it through the back channel of protecting wolves, keeping wolves endangered species list. So
Wow.
wolves on there, they're killing the deer and the elk. Like I was in Idaho last week, and I was in the backcountry area. There's a small little town in there, and then that's about it. But all those elk have moved down into the valleys and hanging around the town and around people in suburbs because it's less likely the wolves will come in. Last year I was there and I heard wolves howling. So those animals is changing their behavior, and this is documented. There's many studies and stuff that have shown this, that they're coming out of the back, and the ones that stay back there, there's very few left, and they have a hard life. The ones that are surviving are coming into town, coming into the suburbs, into the farms, and hanging close to people because the wolves are a little reluctant to do so. So they're doing everything they can to keep wolves on the endangered species list. And we've been fighting it in your area, the Great Lakes states, Michigan, Minnesota, for almost 20 years now, trying to delist them. We've delisted them 3 times.
Yeah.
And fighting those guys have gotten judges who have ruled not on the basis of the population of the wolves, if they're recovered or not. They've blown through all of those thresholds. This little process and procedure, ticky-tack stuff. They're starting to run out of arguments and they're getting back into a corner now. But it's taken the better part of 2 decades to do so.
Right.
But by keeping those animals listed and grizzly bears listed in the West and taking away the hound and the trapping, which are effective management tools for bears and wolves and coyotes,
Right.
they predators on the landscape. And now here in Washington, again, they're talking about adding more protections and regulations around coyote hunting. It's wide open right now because they're coyotes. But they're talking about turning them more into a game animal where there are seasons and dates and regulations.
Wow.
So they're going after things indirectly. For hunting dogs, you don't have to necessarily, doesn't have to be a direct attack like tethering or training methods with collars or something like that. Texas, there's a bill on the governor's desk right now. It made it through the legislature in Texas, of all places, that it reduces the threshold for being what's called a commercial breeder from 11 females and selling 20 puppies down to 5 intact females selling one puppy.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. That math doesn't sound possible.
Yeah. So if you have 5 females and you have 1 litter and sell 1 puppy, you are now a commercial breeder, which means you have to get a license. You have to be FDA inspected, which means you have to open your home, which means you have to start a business permit, which means you have to pay more. So what do you do if you do have puppies? Now the price of the puppy goes up to cover all those costs.
Yeah.
So it's a direct way of getting to the hunting guys, and that's all hunting dog hunters, hounds, bird dogs, labs, or whatever. You increase that cost of doing business, and a lot of it is kenneling requirements. Oh, the house has to be built to this standard. I mean, we're talking housing codes, 3 inches of overhang off the dog box, insulated with this type of material, open to inspection. You know, you would have to hire another kennel hand to make sure they had water at every exact moment, because if the dog gets in there and knocks it over, technically, legally, the dog doesn't have access to water.
Wow.
So if you can create an economic attack that makes puppies, which well-bred puppies, as we all know, aren't cheap anymore. You know,
No.
you're talking grand, easy. You know, now add on breeder licenses, inspections, kenneling requirements, all this other stuff. It's going to be, for the average Joe, impossible to afford a well-bred puppy.
And there they go and walk out another swath of us, right? Yeah. When you said Texas, you always think of Texas as like their own country. Like how could that happen? Now,
that one in particular, we think there's some big money behind it. Some donors from a donor who was given to a lot of folks, and it's supposedly a relative or wife or daughter or something who falls into that side of things.
wow.
Right through the legislature, and it's sitting on his desk right now to be signed into law.
Is there a chance it's going to go, or do we know? How do we feel?
For what there's a pretty good chance that it will be. I mean, it moved through the legislature. If it was going to be stopped, it would have been stopped there.
Oh,
and
man.
And if this donor is pushing, is donating to the governor, then there's a damn good chance it'll go through.
It doesn't seem there's an example. If it doesn't seem possible, it'll never happen to us. That's one of the apparently. And if that happens in Texas, what's to stop it from happening in Oklahoma and then every other state? So they get us by putting the term backyard breeder has always been it's like an ammunition for them. But I've always said, I don't want a breeder whose dogs aren't in their backyard. I want a breeder who is with their dog. Their dog should live in their backyard. Their kennel's in their backyard. And nobody that I know in the sporting dog world, they probably take better care of their dogs than most people take care of their house dogs. But to make sure that they used a certain type of dog house and a certain soil and a certain drainage, and next it'll be distilled water, or it. Oh man. Or I know how they can do it. They'll make us all feed fresh. We all have to make our own fresh dog food. No more kibble.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody would come up with it, I'm sure,
Sure. And if you can't, then you don't deserve a dog. I mean, they've solutions and people's idyllic view of things that just don't exist, that aren't reality, but they prey on it. We've all been Disneyfied by this stuff, and, think that, the lion and the pig, the warthog, Simba and Timber, or whatever their names are. No, this is real life. Like, that's not how things work. But that's what the majority of America, especially city folk, believe.
Yeah. And I almost say they don't believe it. They don't know any better. They literally don't know any better. If you had, those David Letterman used to go on the corner outside the studio and ask people what's the capital of Rhode Island? They'd go, Sumatra. It's the same thing. You could poll those people. They're like, what type of insulation is in your house to keep your dog in your house? I don't know, R12. Wrong. Should be R24. I mean, it's getting so silly. We don't. Well, I shouldn't say this, but it's almost like that group is getting more attention than people taking care of their own kids in school. Like that kind of stuff almost belongs not in the hunting world, in the dog world, in the animal world. We could use a little bit more of it in the people world, education, right? But we've got this group, and it's not always HSUS, but that is the biggest one, right?
Yeah, HSUS is the largest animal rights group in the world. They were merged with Fun for Animals back in '99 or something like that. Huge, like a $200 million a year operating budget. They've been actually quiet for the last year-ish, relatively speaking. Like they're still out there, they're still doing stuff, but they've been kind of quiet, which scares me. The last 18 months, Center for Biological Diversity has just been going gangbusters. They suing left and right the federal government and moving the ball that way. Petition lawsuits. They have like 100 people on staff who are just lawyers.
Wow.
Talking Stanford, Harvard, Duke, Georgetown, Chicago, all of these well-known, great law schools. They have these people on staff. And they, at one time, this was when Trump was in office, they were filing a lawsuit a day against the federal government.
Jesus.
In one 5-year period, they filed like 323 lawsuits against the feds. And what they do, and this is what we've been fighting since last year on the National Wildlife Refuge, they filed a lawsuit against Trump's expansion of hunting in the wildlife refuge system, which every president has done for the last 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
They challenged that. And then the Biden administration sat down and did negotiations with them. Locked Sportsmen out of the room. Like we started hammering and screaming, and we're the ones that brought this up. Like, hey. We back in the 90s, we made hunting and fishing and trapping priority uses on the National Wildlife Refuge. And so when we're like, hey, we started jumping on this. We didn't get any heads up. We didn't get any involvement. And the Biden administration settled with them, and they're going lead-free ammunition on these refuges and refuges going forward that are expanded hunting and fishing opportunities. And so because they settled, the government settled, Center for Biological Diversity can now say, using the Equal Access to Justice Act, they can now say, we were right, give us our lawyer fees. So the federal government will pay their lawyer fees. And they advance their agenda. And so they can file these lawsuits. It doesn't cost them anything because then they settle with the government and they get their lawyers' fees paid for. Meanwhile, they're also fundraising at the same time. So they're making millions off of people who want to help and advance this stuff by putting out this issue of how they're saving animals. They get their lawyers' fees paid for. They can file another lawsuit. It's just rinse and repeat, make money, move the ball to the field.
Now you got me all scared again. A lot of people are worried about their stock market or their money market funds, and now you got me. That doesn't seem how could again? I hate saying it. We just don't know this stuff.
Yeah.
All we know is we can push a button and get a package. We're all excited about that, right? Until they take away your ability to get Amazon delivered. That would get somebody up, right? You get some citizens all like, oh no. But when it comes to the stuff that we want, and we just don't know. We just I've never heard anybody say those words. Like the lawyer, they get their money back from the government. Like
millions. We're talking tens of millions of dollars that they're getting back here. And they're advancing their agenda. So they're winning on both fronts.
Man, oh man. All right. Again, what can we do? Make the phone calls, join the Sportsmen's Alliance, but is there other groups like yours or
Yeah.
are you our cavalry?
No, I mean, there's other groups. We're the only group specifically founded to fight the animal rights movement. Like we work with SCI a lot, they're a great group, work with the NRA. We work with everybody actually,
Right.
anybody that wants to do this. That's why we have the name Alliance, in there, Sportsmen's Alliance. Like we partner up with just about anybody and everybody we can, and depending on the situation, who can move the ball, who's politically, connected, whatever. So that, yeah, lots of groups, but we're the only one that this is all we do. We don't have a record books. We don't do, your conservation on the ground.
Right.
You know,
You're not planting trees. You're
doing that, and that's what a lot of people get it. It gives them something to do. It gives them something tangible to look at and go, "Hey, we made a difference there," and that is great. We're basically insurance.
yeah.
You can't always see what we're doing, but if we don't do it, you're going to lose something.
Yeah. You're not going to get your bumper fixed.
Yeah. When that fire comes, it's not, you don't have the safe around you.
Yeah. Here's my next thought. And not that I have any clout, but Pheasants Forever is a conservation partner of mine, and so is Rough Grouse Society. And they bring in keynote speakers for Pheasant Fest, and it's a well-attended organization.
I've been there. It's great.
Yeah. One of you guys should be the keynote speaker. It shouldn't be about somebody coming back and having a great story and somebody getting it. It should, one of you should be the keynote speaker and scare the crap out of, 5,000 of us at a time. That's and I know people write some articles, but you just don't think of advocacy in that regard. Of course, their mission is habitat, and they're doing great at it. And we can't ask them to spread themselves any thinner, but we got to find a way to spread you guys out thicker.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's where the memberships help. And, we have a huge raffle. We'll be launching that here in a couple of months. And last year, I think the prize pool was over $500,000. We had like 10 trips to Argentina, like 5 trips to Africa. Can't remember how many guns. I mean, and so it's like, okay, here's our raffle tickets. I think it was 50 or $100 for a ticket, but you're entered in every single drawing.
Yeah.
So you get something out of it, or potentially get something out of it. But at the same time, that money, that's our biggest fundraiser for the year. We don't have banquets. We don't have individual chapters. That is our fundraiser. We get private donations from folks. We get memberships, and we have our little raffle, and our big raffle, actually, mega is what we call it, mega raffle, and a little smaller one that we just had like last week, Spring Fling, and that's basically our funding right there. We don't have banquets.
Well, I'm going to encourage everybody, and I won't let it lie. I will throw it into my intros because, I could sit back and be like, yeah, I don't hunt that much anymore, but I've got grandkids that I want to see be able to do it. And at the trajectory of what it's going, let's see, Lincoln's 3 and Lawson's 5. They another 20 years, if we don't become better advocates, you guys won't be able to keep putting your finger in the dike.
That's the truth. Like, we are one generation away from losing this.
Right. I mean, it's not like we're saying, oh, in 60 years we might not have enough fuel. No, in a generation we might just lose the battle.
Yeah. It is that close, and given the way politics and society is today, and that kind of victim, rewarding victimization.
And it's so divisive, just politics is divisive, religion's divisive, it's much more fragile right now than it was 20 years ago.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah. Well, the best thing people can do then is go to the Sportsmen's Alliance. Is it .com.org?
Sportsmen's, MENS, sportsmensalliance.org.
And if you guys have, I'm sure you have you're Margie, I'm sure you have an Instagram page. Even clicking and following that is something, right?
Yep. That we post almost everything that goes up on, out in alerts and stuff like that. So you can just
Yeah.
follow what's happening there, comment, share, like, at least it boosts it in the algorithm.
And I'm sure you would say yes to this, and I'm not offering it to sound like I'm altruistic but I know several of the, like in the Upland podcast world, like there's 5 or 6 of us that are truly buddies, right? I'm the OG, as they say, but they've all come up. We get together, we do events together. There's no reason we can't share your Instagram post once a week.
Oh,
I
awesome.
mean,
That's our big problem right now from a marketing standpoint, is just
Yeah.
like you said, branding and awareness. So
Right.
the more you guys can share that stuff and people see our logo, hear our name,
yeah,
it helps.
I will pound the ground a little bit with the ones that I know I have some close ties with, and say, look, you're all looking for something to post up. My daughter takes care of mine. All I got to do is tell Jessie to start paying attention to you, and she'll be good. I don't have to ask Dad for another picture this week.
Yeah.
But even that can help. But joining and becoming an advocate. Don't bury your head in the sand anymore. It's enough of that. You know,
Please.
it makes it hard to hear when there's sand in your ears.
I like that. That's good.
So real quick, let's wrap it up. But you have a black lab. What do you do with that? Do you do a little duck hunting? I heard you went hound hunting with some buddies. Obviously, you don't run a pack of hounds. What's your hobby, or what's your passion with hunting right now? I see a bear on your wall.
Yeah. Man, I'll tell you, I love doing it all. It's like I said last week, we were hound hunting for bears in Idaho. I grew up doing the upland bird stuff with a Springer, and then I've had a couple of labs now, so I love that connection with the dog and watching them work and getting on the same page teamwork wise for pheasants, quail, chucker around here. But the waterfowl stuff is fun too. In the last couple years, my buddy's been letting me hunt his farm. So my son is now just turned 16. He got an elk last year, a cow elk. And now he went from rifle, now he's jumping into bow hunting. And so we're setting up some blinds and trying to pattern these elk, and hopefully he'll get a bull this year. And I'm going to try some muzzleloader hunting for elk. So I like to do it all, man. I like turkey hunting.
Yeah, I see that. I see that behind you. I make fun of that a lot. It's a fun thing to do, but I do make fun of it a lot because
Yeah, got my son turkey this year, and then my buddy's kid, who my buddy does not hunt. He's like retired, and he just enjoys lake life now. He's been a number cruncher his whole life, does not know anything about hunting. His kid found an interest. His kid's like 17, I think. Hunters ed on his own, and in January asked me if I could take him hunting. I'm like, well, everything just closed. But turkey's coming. So I took him out turkey hunting, got him a turkey, and then I even got myself one the next weekend. So it was a good spring.
Well, it sounds like it. We'll stay in better touch, and I will, like I said, I'll push it for Instagram. I'll push it on my intros and put links and stuff, put something up on our website, because it's been too long since I mentioned it, and it's just time. I mean, we've just got to be better advocates. That's all I can say. It's a rinse, repeat, and rinse, repeat. But I'm gonna go for a year from now. I want to have you back on, and I want to find out that we've got more members, that not because I said it, but because everybody said it and started doing something. I want the graph to be just a little bit better next year when we talk.
Like that. Yes, definitely. Anytime you need something, just holler and let me know.
Will do. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for coming on. Well, let me find the stop.